Hello, and welcome to another episode of Monkey Business, a podcast for business people everywhere about successful people who have tamed their monkey minds, or times maybe when their monkey minds have tamed them, but how they've got through so that they succeed at not only the business of business, but the business of life. Because as a therapist and a coach, I'm really all about that balance. And I couldn't be speaking to anybody who lives in that territory any better than the wonderful Janey Lee Grace. Hello, Janey.
Hi, love to chat to you.
Yeah, you too. We've worked together in the past. It's been my privilege to do so. And Janey is a fantastic broadcaster on BBC Radio 2 and UK Health Radio.
Yeah.
And I am a member of a fantastic community she runs, and a podcast as well that is Alcohol Free Life and the Alcohol Free Community. And now, Janey, you have a book on the same
I
title, I
do. I
believe. Why
do.
don't
Shall I
you
hold it up if anyone's
please
watching?
do?
Yay, there we go. It's quite
Happy.
exciting when you first get your book in your hand. It's
I
everyone's
know.
probably thinking, oh, come on. But it only arrived yesterday.
Did it really? Did it really?
Two days ago, I got my copies. Yeah. So it's really nice. The ebook came out in January, but the main paperback just a couple of days ago. So yeah, happy, healthy, sober, ditch the booze and take control of your life.
Lovely. And you've got 4 other books, is it?
I have, yeah. Well, I've written 5 books in the past, all on holistic living. I've written 1 book around kind of PR and marketing called You Are the Brand. But my other books are all on various different aspects of living holistically, really.
Because I also had your book many years ago. I mean, I don't know when that came out, but the Imperfectly Natural Woman.
Yeah.
When was that published?
That was the first book, and that was I know exactly because my daughter was literally just born. Never try and put a book out and have a baby at the same time. It's like 2 babies. That was 15 years ago. Bizarrely, seems incredible. I often joke that I was ahead of my time because I was sort of talking about coconut oil and kale before they had their own publicists, so
Yeah.
I was talking about a lot of this stuff when not many people were, and then I wrote Imperfectly Natural Baby and Toddler and Home, and then later I did a book for Hay House called Look Great Naturally Without Ditching the Lipstick. So yeah, that's the kind of writing career.
Well, I'm glad to see we've both got our lovely lipstick on today. Yeah, 15 years ago, you're right. I mean, I came up, as you know, I was immersed in that world from the 80s. I actually launched, I don't know if you know this, the Green Consumer Guide.
Oh, did you? Cool.
Yeah, because I was at Lynn Frank's at the time, and that was my account. So Julia Elkington, and we launched the Green Consumer Guide. And at the time, we'd all go to Crank's for lunch because our office was near Marble Arch. And I remember my mum just going, mung beans? What's all this stuff about mung beans? And yeah, it did seem really out on a limb then. So I'm sure even 15 years ago, you were a trailblazer.
Yeah, there was an element of that. I mean, when the book first came out, it literally did nothing, like nothing. It was nowhere. Nobody was interested. And it was my first book. And I just remember thinking, I'm not having this. I am not having this. This is my life's work in this book. And I just at least want a few people to be able to read it. And so I basically hustled, myself. The publisher had paid PR. We didn't get a single booking or a single line in any newspaper anywhere. And I just thought, just no. So I did it myself basically, and I got myself an interview with Johnny Walker. And,
lovely.
And I'm always very grateful to him because he was just sort of genuinely interested in, well, does what we put on our skin make a difference? What we wash our clothes in, does that make a difference? If we're having, if we're all being blasted with electromagnetic frequencies the whole time, and what about what we eat? So we had this fantastic discussion for an hour or so on the radio, and then it was the next morning, the publisher is ringing me and saying, do you realize what's happened? Went, no. It's shot to number 1 on Amazon overnight. And that was back in the day when it was really hard to get an Amazon number 1. And I'd knocked the Da Vinci Code off the top spot. So I think that was something to be proud about. But everyone was in shock. It's like, what are you talking about? It's bizarre. But obviously there was an interest, and I genuinely believe it's because I was fortunate enough to be given from somewhere that title, Imperfectly Natural. And that was the key, because I wasn't trying to say, listen to me, holier than thou. I get everything right.
Mm.
I was very open about the fact that none of us get everything right, but we can do the bits we can. So yes, I am very passionate about holistic living. But I'm also realistic, and I accept that we all do the bits we can when it feels like the right time. So I think that was what resonated with that first book, well, and the others, hopefully, was that I bring a much more realistic approach, which can fit your lifestyle, hopefully not be too expensive, because I can't stand that concept that you can
Yeah,
only be healthy if you've got loads of money. It's not
exactly.
true.
Yeah.
Um, but you can be forgiven for thinking that if you only ever follow your kind of Gwyneth Paltrow's, who there isn't a pot of cream under 300 quid kind of thing. Don't quote me on that, but you know what I mean. it's
I do know what
it's
you mean.
it's a
Yeah.
perception, isn't it, that organic food is expensive, and if you've
Yes.
got to have natural creams, then they've got to cost a fortune. It isn't
Mm.
true. My books are full of DIY recipes. Actually don't have to spend anything.
It's true. In the 90s, when I was probably earning, pretty big money and in that PR world, I'd go into Selfridges and, come out with a pot of Eve Lom or, Erno Laszlo. I remember that I can remember the brands, and it was like, well, they must be good because they're so expensive.
Yeah.
I was like, they must be good. And then years later, when I lived in the Bahamas, I was putting coconut oil and olive oil on my
Exactly.
skin and rubbing my thighs with sand on the beach, and it was
Yeah.
because we couldn't get anything. And so I literally did have to go back. But you've already given me a couple of fantastic glimpses, which are absolutely important for this topic that we're talking about, which is really your monkey mind, or if you like, your mindset. So you sound like you've been a pioneer in quite a lot of ways, business, probably broadcasting, certainly your publishing. What has been that internal dialogue? I mean, I heard you say, I'm not having this, I'm not having the book
Mm.
not found by anybody, but what's been your internal dialogue that's really kept you going and pushed you through?
Well, I think it's interesting because you might imagine that I had an easy start, as it were, but I certainly didn't. I had to forge everything, myself. My parents, didn't had no ambition. I mean, really, literally no ambition at all. So I would have been, if it were left to them, I probably wouldn't never have left the small town in Nottingham that I'm from, and uh, you know, their kind of feeling was one of, let's stay safe. There's a
Mm,
factory at the end of the road that you can work at. Let's stay safe. A very sort of small mentality, really. And I think I just knew very early on, that wasn't going to be enough for me. And I've always been fascinated in the whole nature versus nurture thing. And I don't know the definitive, but I do just know that for me, I wanted something more. I absolutely knew I wanted something more. I didn't even know exactly what it was. I was very into performance from an early age, showing off, you might want to call it.
yeah.
I like showing off. I like dancing and singing and all of that stuff. So I think what changed, I was, because of my upbringing, I suppose. Uh, I was I was a funny mix of confidence on the one hand, but actually incredibly insecure,
Mm,
extremely insecure. And yet somehow I had enough drive to get me started. So I was able to get myself into uni. I went to Middlesex Uni and did performance arts. And that's what changed me, really. I was able to see a whole different world, of course. And then when it came to getting work, I started off as a singer. I did lots in the pop world. Um, and I mean, it was actually really tough when I think back. But I didn't have a safety net, you see.
mm,
I've often found that quite interesting when I look back. And it really affects my parenting as well, because, you hear of people who just constantly give their kids money, and they give them,
mm.
allowances and massive, great big amounts of money. And there's one little bit of me that's constantly saying, there's no way I'd be where I am now if I just had it delivered to me on a plate. I just wouldn't. Um,
You
I
found
really,
that grit.
I really had to find that determination to and there was nobody looking out for me, nobody at all. So I had to do it myself. So I was a grafter. I always made sure I was always working one way or another. But I went after what I wanted. Um, I didn't always get it, obviously. I remember lots of times when I was between tours, I'd been working, maybe with a big band, maybe touring with, whoever. Um, and then I'd get back and I'd be, there in my flat, so you'd get back from this fabulously glamorous tour and you come back to your flat and all that you got is cold baked beans in the
Yeah,
fridge.
I've been there.
Very glamorous.
Well, the
Now,
same when I worked at Lynn Frank's. My second day was we launched Swatch watches on the Orient Express, and then I went back to my house sharing Golders Green,
yeah, exactly.
same deal, and somebody had probably eaten my food out the fridge. I
Yeah,
mean, you and
exactly.
I have a lot of incredible similarities. I'm from Nottingham too. I come from a background where people didn't live that life. I also went to Middlesex.
Mm,
But I only the other day, you and I both were talking on social media and both saying that we were extroverted introverts. And yet
mm,
I will always say I'm not an extrovert because I did an English literature degree and we spent 3 years in really horrible dark rooms reading books, whereas performing arts would
mm,
naturally make me feel that, you were very much that extrovert.
mm.
Did you feel often that you were pushing through and you had a mask that really pushed you out there?
Um, well, the whole extrovert introvert thing, I don't know. I'm not sure where I fit on that, to be honest. I think I am absolutely extroverted. Um, I did one of those Myers-Briggs courses years ago
Yeah.
where they work out what you are, and I was off the scale of extroversion, off the scale. Um, but what's interesting is since I ditched the booze, I have discovered a new side of me that I didn't know existed. And partly it's that I've identified that I am what we now know is called a highly sensitive person. I didn't
Mm.
know that that was a thing. I had no idea. But I'm absolutely that without any shadow of a doubt. And and I think that something of that links a little bit to the introversion, only in the sense that, well, actually, I don't know if it is that or if it's just simply that I am now able to be with myself.
Yeah.
Whereas before I couldn't even have a bath without chatting to somebody the whole way through. So I wasn't comfortable to sit with myself. What the hell? That was way too scary. And now I can be with myself. I'm happy in my own company now. I'm able to like myself a bit more. So that's what I mean really when I say that extroversion introversion thing.
And why did you ditch the booze then? What prompted that journey? Was that an internal dialogue you were having with yourself?
Yeah, very much so. I didn't ever have a rock bottom moment, and I think it's really important to stress that the book that I've written is not aimed at people who are absolutely at rock bottom and need alcohol services and rehab. That is a small percentage of people who are clinically dependent, but I was never in that position. I was always fully functioning, barely ever had a hangover really because my tolerance was quite high. I was just in inverted commas normal drinker. We now know the term is grey area drinkers, and of course in the UK we've been brainwashed into thinking that there are two types of drinkers. There's those at rock bottom, and then
Mm.
there's everybody else, and they're perfectly okay. And that's what kept me stuck for years, because I clearly wasn't at rock bottom, but I wasn't okay. I was waking up pretty much every day at 3 a.m., heart racing, with a voice, literally a voice in my head. I now know it's called the addictive voice. Well, in fact, that one wasn't. That one was the conscience. But my conscience voice, my inner talk, would say to me at 3 a.m., this has to stop. This
Mm.
is not this is not okay with who you are. You're writing books on holistic living. You're talking to people about teaching chemicals. You care about your health. Look at what just all of this stuff was coming at me. This isn't okay. And then by 6 o'clock the next evening, the addictive voice would come in. The wine witch would say to me, oh my God, you've had such a busy day. You deserve a drink. Go
Mm.
get yourself a drink, girl. Your kids are small. You've got something to look after them. You can feel grown up. Go have a nice drink. And that went on for years, years and years and years. And I was stuck. I was literally caught in the alcohol trap. It's a trap. And,
Mm.
we now know the term is grey area drinkers. And there are many, many, many of them. And it's not until you can catch sight of the possibility that life might be better without alcohol, that you can do something about it. And so, yeah, 3.5 years ago, I knew something had to change. But I was very stubborn, and I I didn't want to feel like my life was over and I was going to be boring and miserable, and
Cliches.
all the cliches.
Mm.
Alcohol is so clever. The marketing is so clever. Everything we think we can't possibly be sexy or fun or attractive or confident. Interestingly enough, we can't also relax either or sleep. Amazing how it does everything all at once, allegedly. But the associations are so strong. It's the social glue that sticks everything together. Certainly in this country, it's that sort of bind that goes through everything, that glue. And I couldn't imagine life without it. I just couldn't. And I had that real strong sense of, well, poor me, why can't I just have one like everybody else, for goodness sake? Of course, it isn't everyone else. You just think it is. But when I was able to catch sight of a much better life, one where I wasn't giving anything up, only gaining, that's when everything changed. And I've since realized that the savvy people, the savvy business people, they do this already. The successful people recognize, why would you hold yourself back with some toxic liquid? Why?
Yeah. And how did you get from that being your journey to creating this incredible community in the book?
Yeah, so I mean, that's an interesting one, because to start with, I felt a huge sense of shame and guilt, actually, which is
Mm.
kind of weird, because I didn't feel guilty when I was caning the booze. But when I stopped, well, obviously we have to process our emotions, don't we? Whereas before we hadn't. I think many of us go through years and years and years of actually being very emotionally immature, because we're not used to dealing with any of our feelings. We just numb them out with a drink. Every
Mm.
time we feel anxious or fearful or jealous, okay, I'll have a drink. Stressed, I'll have a drink. And so when you have to actually sit with this stuff and face it, that's another whole area of having to grow up, really. So I most certainly did. I had to get over that shame and look at where that was coming from. I was able to stay inspired, and that was brilliant. And I think it was when I was about 8 months sober, I realized that I couldn't carry on doing the work that I was doing, talking about holistic living and nutrition and all the things without sharing this. I just couldn't.
Mm.
It just didn't feel authentic anymore. I thought, I'm going to have to share what's happened to me, and you never know, it might just help one person. So I very nervously did a kind of live video on YouTube, called it my coming out video.
Well
I was
done.
absolutely terrified. Honestly, I
I
really
would
was.
be if
I
you
really
were.
was. And I was convinced I was going to immediately be trolled by everybody. So it's this very kind of, you can see it on YouTube. It's this very raw, sort of fragile, sort of,
I
don't shout at me. But I just shared my kind of story. And it actually felt really good just to get it out and to recognize that there will definitely be other people in the same situation. And then what happened after that was I found my sober shoes, if you like. I found the power, and I realized that actually being sober makes you brave, and it
mm,
gives you a whole new energy, a whole new purpose, really. And I started to realize, okay, this is important work that needs to be done. There were of course loads of people doing the Quit Lit and the podcasts who were talking about how to give up drinking and sharing their own story, and I love them, and I still do, and I'm super grateful. But there wasn't anyone linking it directly to holistic health and well-being,
mm.
talking specifically about the mindset and the brain chemistry and where the nutrition piece fits in. So I thought, well, that's my bag. I do that anyway. So why
Yeah.
would I not just pull it together? So I started the podcast 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago. And really, I did that because I loved listening to podcasts, and I'd kind of run out. I hadn't got enough.
Yeah.
So I thought, there's a load of people I want to interview. I'm just going to do this. And then and I'm super lucky to be able to have access to a lot of great people. So I wanted to make it really diverse in the different topics. So I started the podcast 2 years ago. And then July 2019, I gave a TEDx talk called Sobriety Rocks. Who
I've
knew?
seen it. It's great.
Yeah, I love doing that. That was amazing. That was nerve-wracking too,
I
even
bet.
though I've been a public speaker for years. That's one of the scariest things I've ever done. And then I decided, okay, again, I had a lot of response from people sort of saying, well, actually, you've inspired me to do this. And what, by the way, what should I eat? Or, and by the
Mm.
way, what happens when I get to this stage? And I just thought, well, let's pull something together. And so I started the Sober Club in September of that year of 2019. And, you know, one of the things that I know you're going to sort of ask me for some top tips or whatever. And here's one right away, which is, you don't have to get it right. You do have to get
Yeah,
it going.
yeah,
Because
I
I
agree.
most certainly didn't have it right. I didn't,
Mm.
it was, I kind of threw it together and just, let's see what happens. And I thought, if I got, I don't know, if I only get 5 people sign up, and and as we all know in business, it's it's a huge amount of work behind the scenes, isn't it? Well, every bit of goddamn admin, I sometimes think the only people making money are the people running the your Zooms and your
Selling
infusion stuff,
selling the
and
shovels, Janey.
and your platforms and your oh my god, and the expense of everything, and,
I
and the
know, tell me.
exhaustion. And I just thought, well, you know what, if I only get 5 people sign up, I'm gonna have to, I'll just make it a beta launch, and
Mm,
then I can stop. But of course, it was more successful than that. I mean, it's not big. It isn't big at all. It's small.
mm.
And that's cool.
I think that's the beauty of it, because there's a fantastic connectivity within the
Yeah,
group, and I want to come back to that because um, I've seen that other TED talk. I forget the guy's name. That the opposite of
of addiction
addiction
is
is
connection.
connection.
Yeah, Johan Hari.
Yes, thank you. And I do, because I belong to the group myself, and that is the thing that, if I had to say one thing about that group, it's that connection and that support. But I just want to rewind quickly to you doing that nervous YouTube video and
Mm,
deciding to kind of really make this part of your life and be public about it. And you said you were worried about being trolled. And obviously you work in mainstream media worlds.
mm.
Did you have any negative backlash from people? Did you
No,
make them uncomfortable?
no, I didn't have any. I didn't have any. I literally didn't have any negative feedback at all. I was
Wow.
amazed, actually. Or if I did, I didn't see it. They
Okay.
always say, actors shouldn't read their reviews, right?
Reviews.
So
Yeah.
maybe there was some, but I didn't see it. And actually, when I think back to the fact that I was nervous, I was nervous, but by the same token, because it was a very personal thing, but by the same token, this is the work that I've been teaching for years, is this theory that you are the brand. And when
Mm.
you share your story, parts of the story you want to share. Let's not be
Yes,
ridiculous. You don't
of
have to
course.
bring every single skeleton out of the cupboard, but you can prep in advance the parts you want to share. Actually, that's the gold. The gold is right there in in sharing that you've been there, done it, got the t-shirt. So over the years, I've worked with lots of therapists, coaches, people who want to PR their business, people who want to get out there. And sometimes, they'll say to me, one of the questions I often ask people is, what question don't you want to be asked? Right.
Right.
Because of course,
Yeah,
I
there
work,
lies the
I work with
gold.
a relationship coach, and
Yeah.
who wants to get their message out there. And I said, what question don't you want to be asked if I were going to be interviewing you now on radio? And he said, well, the fact that I've been married 5 times, I don't want to be asked that. Excuse me, there's your gold right there.
Exactly.
You've been married 5 times and you now
Exactly.
coach around, that's the gold. And people often don't see it, but the beauty is in recognizing your own personal story and how you can use it to help other people. So yes, I was nervous, but also I knew all my own shtick. I knew that I knew that what I was sharing would resonate with people. I knew that it would.
And again, I've walked that path, certainly in the last 3 or 4 years, because in PR I was the power behind the throne. I like to refer to myself as the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, cranking the lever. It's like, yes, you get out there into the spotlight. I'll just stay here behind the curtain. And so when suddenly it was about me and I was out there, I was actually incredibly uncomfortable. And I kept thinking of Brené Brown and Daring Greatly. But recently I came across a terminology she had, which is a vulnerability hangover.
Mm.
So you're not getting the other kind of hangover, but you wake up the next day and think, oh dear, what did I say or how did I come across? Do you have that?
Um, I don't know that I do anymore. I think
Mm,
that I definitely used to, without any shadow of a doubt. I used to all the time. I was so insecure about just about everything I did. Um, and I now know that drinking was a very big part of that. Drinking kept me nervous. It kept me
right.
small. It kept me in a place where I wasn't absolutely confident. It kept me in that role of imposter syndrome for
Mm,
years, years and years and years, um, because I was always on the back foot. You're always on the back foot if you're drinking because you aren't completely authentic with who you're meant to be.
mm,
So when I properly, got my sober shoes on, and started to get a bit more clarity and a bit more energy, and I could literally see things more clearly. I had a sense of strength and power and authenticity. Um, it doesn't mean I don't get anything wrong,
no.
but if I get something wrong, I'll admit I'm wrong.
Mm,
And if I put something out there and someone doesn't like it, I don't care. Because it's my truth. I'm not.
yes.
If I was doing a presentation on, I mean, I'm a presenter. I've been a presenter all my life. I'm a public speaker, but I couldn't do you a presentation on rocket science, even if you paid me,
Yeah.
because it's not my thing. I can only share what I'm passionate about, and that's the point of the business kind of books and the PR stuff I do is share what you're passionate about, and that enthusiasm and passion will come across. And someone may not agree with you.
Mm,
That's fine, but they can't take it away from you because it's your story. So, and I think that correlates as well. When people stop drinking, they always get terrified of the sober shamers. Or what will
yes.
people say? What will they think of me?
Mm.
Well, often it's that your behavior shines a light on their behavior, of course.
Of course, that's
And
what I'm
that's,
saying. It makes them
yeah,
uncomfortable.
exactly. And that's why
Yeah.
people can then be a bit mean or whatever. But
Yeah.
ultimately, if you just say how you feel, usually very quickly turns around when people just say, you know what, I'm not drinking. I feel much better when I don't. I feel a lot less anxious. I'm feeling good. But knock yourself out. More for you. I'll have an alcohol-free beer or whatever. Usually, people are good. They're good with it because no one can take away from you how you feel about you. It's only
Exactly.
when we don't know how we feel about ourselves, which I had that for years. I had no idea whether I was not confident, good enough, not good enough.
So what I'm hearing, and tell me if that's right, is for you, and going back to the monkey brain and the mind chatter and that kind of voice in your head, the sobriety gave you a kind of almost a spiritual dimension, or it gave you access to a feeling, a surety. It wasn't just switching that 3 o'clock voice off, but it was something way beyond that that you probably had never even anticipated. Is that right?
Yeah, 100% right.
Mm,
Absolutely 100% right. I had years and years and years where I was steeped in the world of health and well-being, spirituality. But if anyone had ever pointed a finger back at me, while I was interviewing the greats, so I did lots of series for Hay House Radio. I've interviewed everyone. Um, but if any of them had ever pointed a finger back at me while I was asking the questions about meditation and
mm.
mindfulness and spirituality, I I would have had to have admitted that I didn't think it meant me.
Yeah,
It's for everyone else. Everyone else must
is what you were
meditate.
doing.
Everyone else must have a morning routine. Everyone else must look within. Everyone else must love themselves, but not me. That'd be
No.
ridiculous. I couldn't possibly do that. That was not who I was talking. Couldn't even think about it. Couldn't sit still for 2 minutes, let alone sit in meditation. Have you gone mad? Far too much to do. Rush about, do things, be busy, block out any kind of thoughts that might not be that welcome.
So
So yes, it changed absolutely everything.
I need to ask you, because you've handed it to me on a plate, what's the question you don't want to be asked?
Oh, good one. What don't I want to be asked? Um, Well, I mean, it'll probably spin it around because I don't know that the gold is there in this case. But I wouldn't want to be asked about my the level I was drinking at when my kids were young. You
Mm,
know, But I'm quite open about that, really. I wouldn't want to go into great detail about it, though, because
No,
I hate that. I just hate the fact that I missed really so many of those years. I mean, I wasn't completely blotto, of course,
no, yeah.
but I could have been so much more present. That's really my only regret. That's my big regret,
Mm.
that I wasn't present, fully present when the kids were young. And if anyone, is watching this, who's a parent, this will be if you ditch the booze, literally the best gift you will ever give to yourself, but the best gift you can ever give to kids. It's
Yeah,
not just about the role model piece. It's about
being
the
there.
the presence. Yeah, the presence.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I mean, I know when I look back, my mother wasn't available to me. She was there, but she wasn't available to me. That's a
No,
whole host of other reasons.
of course not.
She had mental illness, so she wasn't available to me. And I know the impact of that, right into old age. I really know the impact of that. But I had a choice, and alcohol's kind of cruel in that way, that
Keeps
it
taking.
takes parents away.
Mm.
That the whole mummy wine culture. Oh my God, it's insidious, and well, with lockdowns, it's
And
worse.
how do you think we're going to break it? I mean, really, because I see it. I see it on Facebook every Friday. Tonight, there'll be somebody holding up a really big glass of
Mm.
something to the picture,
Thank
going,
God the homeschooling's
"Boy, do I
over.
deserve this."
Yeah, yeah.
How are we going to break that pattern? Or
Well, people have to be ready, don't they? If someone had tried to preach at me all
yeah,
those years ago, I wouldn't have liked it,
no,
at all. So that's why, my approach is completely non-judgmental. I try not to go in with the pain point all the time. I mean, we could talk about how bad alcohol is for you, and how it's linked to 200 illnesses and God knows how many different types of cancer, and how it makes you fearful, and fear lowers immunity, and on and on and on. So it could do the pain point, but far more powerful for me is just to keep drip feeding these messages that life is so much better without it. And if someone can just catch sight of that, then that's what makes all the difference. Nobody, well, I think I opened the book by saying, if only someone had told me how freaking fantastic life is without the booze. No one ever told me that.
no,
Even when I asked about it, even when I went to a doctor, even when I saw therapists, healers, I mean, no offense to these people, they
no,
meant well. They absolutely meant well. And none of us can share something we don't know and don't
mm,
understand. But
exactly.
when I look back, there must have been 20, at least 20, because of the work I do. I get to see a lot of healers and therapists. So I saw goodness knows how many practitioners, healers, therapists, doctors occasionally, wise people, spiritual people. Okay, lots of spiritual people, by the way. And I would really, towards the end of my drinking days, quite often raise the topic if I felt safe, because it felt important. And I would just sort of say, actually, I'm worried about, I've got a voice in my head
Yeah.
telling me to keep drinking. I'm worried I'm drinking too much. Not one person ever said to me, man, I've got the answer for you. You
Yeah,
are
yeah,
gonna love this. Let me
yeah.
help you. You're gonna love it. It's fantastic. Everyone just said, a few drinks of wine. Sounds kind of normal. Just have a
Mm,
glass of water in between.
yeah, balance it out, or don't, or
You know,
stop at 9 o'clock. That was what
exactly.
somebody once told me.
And that kept me stuck for years.
Mm,
Um, the good news is that the tide is turning, and there are more and more people now talking about this, spreading these little bits of light. There will be people I know who are in the sort of well-being community, who, just like me, won't have thought of the alcohol piece, but
yeah,
that's where my book might come in. They might
yeah.
pick up my book because there's a whole thing on there about having a cacao ceremony, or because there's a whole piece about written by Gemma Newman, the plant power doctor, or because there's a piece on meditation or breathing techniques. They might pick it up for another reason.
So, what
But
were
then,
you hoping to achieve with the book? I mean, you talked about the tone, almost this euphoria, this celebration, this positive secret. Is that really what comes through on every page?
I think it does, actually. I hope it does. I mean, you have to tell me. The first section of the book is a little bit about my story, and then the how-to. So I do include the how-to. So if you're at day one or sober curious, it's there. How to get the buzz without the booze. How to make that those early weeks easier for yourself. I didn't. I got it all completely wrong. Forgot everything I knew. Right?
Yes.
Hilarious. But I now know there are things you can do. You can eat well. You can get connected. You can get your sober toolkit, and I go through all of that in the first part of the book. So the how to is there. And then and the reasons why, obviously. And then the second section of the book is just masses of incredible lifestyle stuff that you won't use all at once. No one will. But that, you know, all these amazing ways you can upscale once you've stopped drinking, because people do. You know, you've seen it in the sober club community.
I have.
It's incredible.
It's
You know,
lovely.
I meet people on day one, you know, or even if it's only on Zoom, and they're all sort of fragile, little lambs, little newborn, like, oh, hello. And like, well, I don't want to stop drinking. I'm just gonna stop for a bit, and then I'll go back to moderating, and everything about them is sort of shaky, and just they're terrified of everything. And that we keep them going, and we inspire them, and they catch sight of the next piece. And then when things get hard, someone ahead of them says, actually, do you
Oh
know what, that
yeah.
happened to me?
Mm.
That happened to me. I couldn't sleep either.
I walk
Do
that path.
this, do that, push through. You've got better to come. You've got better to come. And it's that encouragement and support. And then there they are a couple of months later, literally like a different person. In some cases, whole new career has been started, or they've launched a new project. The amount of people who've started writing, they've found creativity within them. They've completely changed their diet. I mean, just so many changes. It's incredible, because you get your mojo back. So that's really what I want for the book. I want people to kind of go, wow, well, I wonder if my life could be better physically and emotionally without the booze.
And
Or
if
if
they
I've
want,
already stopped, you know, what else can I do now?
and where can they get the book, Janey?
Yeah,
Got to hold it up again.
all the usual places. I mean, of course, if it were normal life, real life, I could tell you bookshops and events. But yeah, all the usual places. Or if you want a signed copy, then if you go to the soberclub.com, we can sort that out for you as well.
And there's lots of other resources there, aren't there, for sober curious people who maybe are
Definitely.
just
Yeah. Lots of stuff. There's lots of blog posts. There's I think if you sign, I've got a separate little website, which you'll find from the Sober Club, but that's happyhealthysober.com. And there's some free resources on there. There's a free meditation. And there's various bits and bobs. And I've always got lots of great competitions. So, you know, we haven't even touched on alcohol-free drinks, but my mantra is keep the ritual, change the ingredients.
kombucha.
You know?
I'm
Yeah.
such a fan of kombucha. I
Exactly.
love it.
And this is important, because if I'd have been trying to do this 10 years ago, it would have been much harder, because
Mm.
while everyone else sat round having their lovely drink in their lovely glass, I'd have had a cup of tea, you know, or
Yes.
a Coke or an orange juice, which I don't like. But now the whole world has changed. And as we all know, big brands jostle alongside the artisan brands, and the choice is huge. So keep the ritual, change the ingredients. If you always have a drink with your family or your partner or your friends at 6 o'clock, no problem. Have a drink, have a lovely glass, and have something alcohol free in it. So the book has a whole bunch of recipes and stuff. And on the Sober Club, we've got lots of competitions to try and win alcohol free.
Brilliant. So what's next for you?
What's next? Well, I would like to get this message out to many more people. You know, I'd love to do more TV or radio, or somehow make the podcast able to reach more people. It's just me, you know. I don't have a publisher. I don't have any budget. So yeah, I would like to reach more people with this really positive message. And I don't know quite how that would happen, but yeah, that's my goal. Obviously, I want the Sober Club to you know, be the beautiful thing it is. I want it to grow a bit, not too much. So that's really
So
important.
it's like a family still.
It's a family, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course I do one-to-one coaching. So I love doing that. I absolutely love seeing the transformation in people. I know you do too. I know you do that,
Oh, yeah,
and
of
it is
course.
so
It's
unbelievable, isn't it?
what
It's so
gets us
believable.
going every
Yeah.
day. So
So
you're
yeah.
a brilliant interviewer. What question would you have asked you that I haven't asked you?
What question would I have asked me? Um, I suppose, well, it's that kind of classic thing, isn't it? It's what would you have liked to tell your younger self? It's that
Hmm.
question, isn't it? I think it's quite often the relevant question. And I suppose the answer would be um, goes without saying, I would have liked to tell my younger self how freaking fantastic life is without booze. But aside from that, I would have liked to have said to my younger self, um, feel the fear and do it anyway. You know,
Mm.
that classic book. Um,
Erica Jong.
Accept that. No, Susan Jeffers
Oh,
is my
Susan
one.
Jeffries. Yes,
Susan
sorry.
Jeffers.
Who's Erica
Yeah,
Jong? What did
that's
she
the other
write?
book, isn't it? That's the other
Yeah.
feminist one.
Oh,
But yeah,
I'm
Susan
remembering.
Jeffers. And Susan Jeffers' other amazing phrase, actually, which I loved from one of her books, was never try and teach a pig to sing. It will waste your time and it annoys the pig. And I love that because when I look back, how much time did I spend trying to change people or trying to fit myself into a mold that I didn't fit into, to be something I wasn't?
That's
Um,
brilliant. Say
you
that
know,
again. Say that again.
it's never try to teach a pig to sing. It will waste your time and it annoys the pig. It's
I
just
love
fab, isn't
that.
it?
When I was in PR, we had a different pig saying, which was if you wrestle with a pig in, we'll call it muck, you both end up smelling of muck, but the difference is the pig likes it.
Yeah, love it.
So I love it. So from monkeys to pigs, we've covered
Yeah,
incredible ground. I could talk to you all day, and you will definitely be a return guest because
good. Hope
I'm
so.
so excited to see what's next for you. It's been imperfectly perfect and wonderful for me. You've affected my life. You make me raise my bar on not just interviewing, but really being a human being and a therapist. So I really do appreciate that, and
Oh,
I
thank
want
you.
you to know that. So that comes from the heart. So thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
me today on Monkey Business. And I look forward to catching up with you again soon and to reading your book, actually.
Definitely. Yeah, I hope you
Yes,
enjoy it.
I will, I'm sure. Thank you, Janey.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Take care.